Hello, friends, and welcome to Pathologic, Volume 1, Episode 3. Today we are continuing our journey through the world of logic pencil puzzles, learning a new one each day. And today's puzzle is called a look air. This is a bit unusual, but a very interesting one to me. So let's enjoy it together and take a look at the rules. Look air is a shading puzzle in which we will be drawing squares in a grid. The rules are as follows. Shade some cells such that all connected regions of shaded cells form perfect squares. So you can see in our solution we have some squares that have been filled in, and there are no shaded regions that are rectangles or other shapes. No two squares are touching orthogonally. They're not sharing any edges. Two squares of the same size may not have a direct view of one another, which is defined as they cannot have a straight line of unshaded cells in between them, but may be in the same row or column. This is the confusing rule of this genre. So this is saying that this 2x2 cell can't see another 2x2 cell. If we trace a direct line horizontally or vertically from it, we will not see another 2x2 cell, 2x2 square of cells. But the caveat at the end is talking about the example here from this 1x1, which, as you can see, does share a column with this 1x1 at the bottom, but is obstructed by a 2x2 in between. So that is legal. A number in the grid represents the number of shaded cells that share at least one edge with it, including itself. So this number 0 is saying that not only is the 0 unshaded, all of the three orthogonally adjacent cells are also unshaded. Whereas this 3 in the middle right here is saying that among it and the four adjacent cells, 3 of those are shaded. And in this case, it's the cell itself and its neighbors to the west and south. Those are the rules to look air, so let's get solving. Today's look air puzzle is set by Jovial. The first thing we can look for in a puzzle like this are zero clues. Zero clues are helpful in lots of genres. In particular, in here, we are told that a number clue indicates how many shaded cells there are in that cell and all of the neighboring cells. So this 0 right here tells us this is not shaded, nor are the orthogonal neighbors. And we can do that here too. Now, it's a little unusual, I think, that clued cells can in fact be shaded in this genre. So that's something we have to internalize a bit. Let's look at now very large clues as well. It would be really great to have a 5, and we do have a couple 5s. 5s, that is exactly how many cells there are in the cell and the adjacent ones. So those, we can do the opposite thing. Now let's continue that by looking for the ones that are pretty large but also are constrained either by known shaded, unshaded cells or by the edge of the grid. Here in the corners, we've got some 3s. 3 is usually not large enough to make that kind of a leap, but here, because it's in the corner, there are actually only 3 cells that are candidates. So those will all have to be shaded, and the same goes for this one down here. Now, kind of branching out from that, I immediately notice this 1 clue here now is completely satisfied by that neighboring cell. Here's another 1 that is satisfied, and 1 right here. And this 3 is in a virtual corner because we know 2 of the cells around it already. So these 3 are going to have to be shaded. Okay, So that is what I see as immediate results from just that one rule. Now let's think about the fact that all of the shaded regions are perfect squares. What that tells me is that once I have extended a shaded region past one square, I need to make sure that I can extend it at least the same number of cells in the opposite direction. So, starting at this top left corner, since this region is 2 cells wide, at least, in fact, exactly in this case, it needs to be that length in the vertical direction as well. So this is 2 horizontally, it needs to be 2 vertically, and we have our completed shaded square here. We're also told that this describes the entire connected region. So we can't butt up 2 of these square regions with each other. So that means that now that we've got a square here, we have completed it, and this one will be unshaded. We've got the same pattern down here in the other corner, so let's finish that. Now, let's look at this 5 region. So immediately, I see that this is at least 3 horizontally, needs to be at least 3 vertically, which it is, but we can't have little cutouts in a square shape. So these cells are all going to be filled in. The same goes for this region here. Now, could these grow? Well, they can't grow this one can't grow to the right or down, so we can mark those unshaded. This can't grow up or left. Could this one grow to the right? At the moment, there'll be some clues, I think, that are going to tell us the answer is no, but right now, just from the basic rules of the squares, it could, because it could get larger. It would just have to get a lot larger. It would immediately butt up against this other big square, and we'd have one giant square, which is allowed by itself. No rules against that. So we'll put a pin in that for the moment. I think we'll discover reasons why that can't be the case. Let's continue teasing out this rule that we've been working with. This 3 right here needs to be a square, which means that it is at least this big. And once again, that rule alone doesn't tell us it's not larger than that. It could grow, but again would be a part of this huge square if that were the case. And we can unshade these other 2 directions because it's already bounded a little bit in one cell, so it has to be bounded in all of the cells on that side. Okay, so there's a couple places we could go from here, but I think the most obvious thing to do is to flip back to the first deductions we were making, which were clues that were almost taken care of already. And this 3, for example, now has 2 of the 5 possible cells already marked as unshaded, which means that in order to shade 3 of its candidates, it's got to be these 2 and the one we already have. The same will happen for this 3. We've got these 2 unshaded here, so this and this both need to be shaded, and this one needs these 2. Also, you can look for ones that are completely fulfilled, like this 2 clue right here already has 2 shaded cells in its neighborhood, so these 3 cannot be shaded. And there's a lot of places we could go next, but I think it's worth noting that we were talking already before about could this square grow any larger. Now we have a boundary on its south edge, which means it can't grow east either, or else it wouldn't be a square anymore. So these cannot be shaded. And this square likewise is now bounded on all 4 sides, so we can fill that out. Another thing we would look for in puzzles like this often are these little constrained cells that are bounded enough that they can't grow. This is bounded on 3 sides, and it can't grow on the 4th because then it wouldn't be a square anymore. So that is unshaded. Another way you can look at that will be handy sometimes is, let's say this wasn't constrained on these 2 sides, so it could theoretically grow. If it grew to the left, it would become part of the same region as this other cell, and it would form a shape that couldn't possibly become a square. So that's another tool in your belt when you're looking at this kind of puzzle. But for multiple reasons, this can't go west, so that is unshaded. This can't go south because then it wouldn't be a square, unshaded. And now this can't go to the east, same reason. This can't go to the east. This 2 needs 2 shaded cells in its neighborhood. These 3 are unshaded. This one's shaded. This one has to be the other shaded cell to complete the picture. And this 1 has to get 1 here, which will not extend further. Okay, great. We've done a lot of work with those initial rules. Now we need to look at the final rule in look air, with the one about the looking. So we can't have 2 squares of the same size that can see each other directly. So let's look at some counterexamples right off the bat. This single-sized cell can see this 2x2, which is fine, and it can see this 3x3, which is fine, but it couldn't see another single. So, for example, we now know from that this cell right here is unshaded, because if it were shaded, it couldn't extend any further. It would be a 1x1, and now we have 2 1x1s that can see each other, and that is not allowed. So this is unshaded. Let's see if there are other places where we can apply that logic. If this cell were shaded, it would be a 1x1 and could see this one. And now that this is unshaded, we can just march to the left and see that this couldn't be shaded, or we'd have 2 1x1s that could see each other. And this can't be shaded, or we'd have 2 1x1s that can see each other. So that takes care of this corner of the grid. Great. So now let's look at where we can go next. This clue right here is a 1, so we know exactly one of these 5 cells is shaded. Now, I imagine there are a lot of ways you could approach this, but I want to continue picking at the logic we were just looking at and asking the question, could there be a 1x1 cell region in any of these 3 cells? Obviously not, because if it was in this cell, it would see this 1x1. If it was in this cell, it would see this 1x1. And even this one can't be blocked by anything larger before it would hit this 1x1. So none of these are a single cell. Could they be part of a larger than 1x1 region, which would be okay to see this one? Well, if they were a 2x2 or greater, then they would need to extend horizontally to cover at least 2 cells. And the problem with that is, no matter how we do that, this 1 clue is no longer a 1 clue. It can only have 1 shaded cell, so it can't have the 2 or 3 that we would need in those circumstances. So in fact, we can deduce that none of these 3 cells are shaded. And the great thing about that is, now we have this slice right here that is only 1 tall. So if it has any shaded cells in it at all, they are a 1x1. And we have a 1 by 1 over here that can see wherever that would be, it can see it. So we have now eliminated all 3 of these from being shaded. So now what? This 1 now has 4 of its candidates unshaded, so the 5th one has to be the shaded one. And these other 1 clues now have their quota fulfilled, so we can unshade those and those. And now this is a completed square. It cannot extend, so it can't go that way. So let's take a quick look to check our work. Are there any squares that can see the same shape horizontally or vertically? The easiest way to eyeball that is to start with the big ones. See if the big ones can see each other. No, they cannot. Can the 2 by 2s see each other? They certainly cannot. So it's just the 1 by 1s, and that takes a little bit more looking, especially keeping in mind that this 1 by 1 can't see this other 1 by 1 because it is blocked by a larger region, which makes that legal. So, in fact, this is how you solve a look error. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and check out the description below for more free puzzles.